Imagine being inside of a cathedral on top of one of the largest pyramids in the world, most of which is still buried. And this pyramid and cathedral happen to be surrounded by three of the largest volcanoes in North America, one of which is the highest active volcano on the continent at about 18,000 feet. To give you perspective, this giant is about 4 times the size of Mount Vesuvius, the volcano that allegedly destroyed Pompeii, and over 5,000 feet higher than Japan's famous Mount Fuji, next to the gigantic city of Tokyo. Even the famous Mount Rainier overlooking Seattle falls short by a few thousand feet. What is even more interesting is that this volcano is next to a city of a few million people that seems unalarmed every time this mountain comes alive. So join me as we discover what I feel like is one of the most exotic places of stark contrast on Earth. That is not only home to this pyramid and massive volcanoes, but also home to one of the fastest growing cities in Mexico, containing an abundance of beautiful and interesting architecture, both modern and historic. On top of stunning architecture, this area is also known for very delicious food, some of which we will be trying in this video. There are so many things to explore in this area, but of course our main focus is to get to the pyramid. And to do this, we first have to arrive to one of the largest cities in Mexico. Welcome to Puebla. The city of Puebla is located in the south central part of the country, about 2 to 3 hours east of the massive capital of Mexico City, depending on traffic of course. This is where we start our journey, and from here I will show you how to get to Puebla. Mexico City, by the way, is one of the largest cities in the world and can be overwhelming to a person who's not used to a city of this size. Because of Puebla's proximity to the capital, I usually take the bus. For that, we go to Mexico City's massive eastern terminal. And as we get on our way to this terminal, we see a lot of traffic, as to be expected for a city of this size, as well as a lot of art adorning the freeway walls, showcasing this very proud and colorful culture. In a city of this magnitude, you see skyscrapers and high-rises in practically all directions, not just in its downtown. And of course, in a city whose metropolitan population exceeds 20 million people, you do expect to see a massive public transportation system with trains that can often be extraordinarily long, carrying large quantities of people across the city. As we get onto the last elevated structure before arriving to the terminal, we get a good view of downtown, as well as of the metro line that feeds into the terminal. We are then treated to a view of Tapo's beautiful and sizable dome, as well as more views of downtown in the background. And shortly after, we exit this elevated structure to get onto the main street that will take us into the terminal. One thing you may notice is how wide and how reinforced the pillars are under the elevated structures, and that is because Mexico City has some of the highest number of earthquakes out of any city in the world. We arrived to Tapo, Terminal de Autobuses de Pasajeros de Oriente, which loosely translates to the Eastern Bus Terminal. Once we arrive, we have to go through an underground tunnel to get to the main part of the terminal, and this tunnel was lined up with a variety of shops, just like many places in this city. We finally reached the main area of the terminal, containing booths selling tickets, as well as more shops and restaurants. Looking up, you witness the massive and iconic dome of this terminal that can be seen from far away. For the trip to Puebla, I use ADO, or Autobuses del Oriente, and I purchased the 3 p.m. schedule to Capu, which is Puebla's main bus station. After purchasing my ticket for roughly 300 pesos, which was about $15 at the time, it was time to wait for my scheduled departure. Sitting down in this very small section of the terminal gives you an idea of the size of Tapo. And mind you, on top of that, this is just one of 4 main bus terminals for Mexico City. When it was time to board, we had to first pass through security, and this is typical in the bigger cities. Right outside was my bus with the destination to Puebla, and it is not uncommon for some people to be curious about visitors like myself.
¿De dónde vienes?
De Texas, amigo.
Okay.
¿Conoces?
Sí.
As we finally start our journey, we get an even bigger grasp as to how massive this terminal is. Built in the 70s, Tapo supposedly handles about 10,000 passengers a day, which would translate to roughly 3.5 million annually. This is why it is not uncommon to see multiple buses entering and exiting at the same time. One of the first things that we see as we leave the terminal is even more art on the side of apartments, providing more proof to the love of art in this culture. And shortly after this, we go through miles and miles of what seem to be older established areas. So needless to say, practically the first half of the trip is just getting out of Mexico City. Anyone who has driven through or flown over this city and the surrounding areas has probably noticed the sheer magnitude and size of one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world. As we inch ever so closer to the eastern outskirts of the city, we go over one of the many elevated junctions that the city has built because of the lack of space. We also pass by one of the biggest, if not the biggest, airlift transportation system in the world, which, from what I understand, is designed to serve the lower income areas and hilly parts of the city. As we leave Mexico City, we go through one of many toll booths along the tollways in this country, as well as warehouses and travel stops to be expected. We pass by some of the last subdivisions of the metropolitan area before finally hitting the countryside. It isn't long before we start getting into the foothills of the massive mountains that separate Mexico City from Puebla. And with that, we enter full-blown forests at the higher elevations. I have to say that it is quite impressive the amount of what seem to be stores and restaurants that you see along the way. Once we go through the highest elevations of this journey, we come down into the valley where the city of Puebla is located. And on clear days, you can get a view of the giant active volcano Popocatépetl. As we finally enter the Puebla metropolitan area, we go through a fairly new double-decker that acts as express lanes from what I understand. And of course, we go through some of the many newer suburbs of Puebla before finally entering the fairly old but quite functional and extensive main bus terminal of Puebla, which is CAPU, Central de Autobuses de Puebla. Upon arrival, the bus usually parks on the outer ring of the terminal, and therefore we have to cross a covered pedestrian bridge to get to the main part of this building. After walking over this pedestrian bridge, we finally arrive to the sizable and very open main section of this terminal. Here you find many of the booths selling the bus tickets as well as more options for food. And honestly, for being the bus station, I feel like the food here is actually pretty decent. Such as this quick, simple plate of milanesa with horchata and soup.
This looks to be like some sort of soup with zucchini or squash and carrots. It looks simple, but usually in Puebla anyway, even the simple stuff tends to be tasty because of the ingredients and the seasoning. And now for the main course.
Honestly, not bad for bus station food. From the bus station, we head to the historic center of Puebla, filled with stunning colonial architecture. This area has a variety of options for lodging, from simpler hotels like this one that actually had a phenomenal view of the main cathedral, to others that have been remodeled recently, giving you a more modern ambiance that contrasts with the more historic area outside. If elegance and upscale is your thing, Puebla has got you covered on that one as well. Such as this very beautiful, artistic, and rustic hotel with a theme based on composers from around the world. On one of my stays in this hotel, I was very fortunate to be given a room in the name of one of the most famous composers of all time. And I'm sure many of you have heard of him. Not only was this room themed after the famous composer, but it also screamed of rustic elegance, so much so that it even had a vinyl record player. The crowning jewel of this room, in my opinion at least, is that it was located on a corner and contained a balcony offering spectacular views of this stunning historic area outside. This room even left me with something philosophical to think about. The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between them. Enough about hotels, and let's talk about the gorgeous main square in the historical colonial core of Puebla. One of the first things that you see emanating northward from the square is the famous Paisaje de Ayuntamiento, or City Hall Passage. Keep in mind that I have visited Puebla more than once, so the footage in this video is from the numerous times that I have visited this wonderful city. Not only is this passage stunningly beautiful, but without a doubt, it has to be one of Puebla's most iconic historic attractions. And just like many places in this city and this country as a whole, you are likely to find performers inside this passage. And up ahead we have the very beautiful main plaza, or Zocalo, and also the main cathedral of the city. As we exit this passage and get back onto the main plaza, we notice many other things, such as this locally famous performer that was wearing clothes that seemed to mimic Poblano style porcelain, and even had a ceramic dog, believe it or not. The main square itself is full of life, to be expected. In the middle you find a very big beautiful fountain, and on the other side you find one of the most beautiful structures in the city. We are here in the main plaza, or the Zocalo of Puebla. This place actually dates back to the 1500s, so it is definitely one of the oldest places in the whole country, and it still stands as one of the main historic plazas in the entire nation. One thing that makes this city very, very famous are the 3 volcanoes that surround the city, which is something we're going to see later. As you can see, it is rather cloudy because during the summer months this place gets a lot of monsoonal rain. So it is very common for it to rain in the middle of the day, just like Mexico City, and it cools it down tremendously. Right now it feels, I would say, probably about 70 with the breeze. Very pleasant. For some people that might even be too cold. It's kind of a shock to me coming from Texas where it's like 90, 95, almost 100, but honestly I'm enjoying it. During my many visits to Puebla, I have been at this point in front of its very colorful and artistic touristic sign, which in itself is in front of a World Heritage Site, and that is Puebla's main cathedral. From what I understand, construction on the Basilica Cathedral of Puebla started in the 1500s and took over a century to complete. And this beautiful structure is known to have some of the highest spires in this country at about 200 feet, which is roughly 20 stories. In the daytime, you can enjoy all the details that went into the structure, and at night, you can enjoy even more stunning views when this basilica is lit up. Walking inside this glorious structure will also likely leave you with an impression. Right in front of the cathedral, we have a taco shop by the name of Don Pastor, which is a place that I have a tradition of visiting when I'm in Puebla. Aside from delicious food, this place has a very interesting and entertaining ambiance that, from what I understand, represents the different aspects of Mexico City, even the metro system. There are so many colorful and creative details to analyze when visiting this place. And one of those details is the subway car inside the restaurant that even had tables that customers could utilize to enjoy their meals. Even the bathroom in the upper level in the back is full of character with a lot of interesting ornaments, as well as good views of the restaurant. An example of such ornaments are clothes on a hanger, which I'm assuming is to mimic a working class area in Mexico City. I usually order alambres, which are basically a mixture of the meat used for tacos as well as vegetables and cheese. Alright guys, check this out. This is Rascatripa Alambre. This thing, I mean, look at this, delicious. It's a mixture of trompo, which you guys already know. Some of you guys call it pastor, bistec, which is beef, also some bacon, peppers, onions, and of course you cannot forget the cheese that just makes it delicious. As expected, it starts to rain. This is one of the downsides of the monsoon season. I mean, it's cool because it does cool it down. To me, it's a lot better than being in, 90 to 100 degrees, but it makes it a little challenging because at any moment you could have a clear day and 10, 20 minutes later it's raining pretty hard and making things kind of challenging. Luckily, there was someone walking around selling umbrellas from whom I was able to purchase one for 100 pesos. Aside from amazing Mexican food, you can also find delicious foods from other cultures, such as this very cute Italian restaurant that I patroned on one of my other visits that happened to survive despite opening near the time of the pandemic. One thing that I have experienced with small mom and pop Italian restaurants in Mexico is that many of them make their pasta fresh, as you can see with this one in the back. I am a sucker for high quality food, so seeing that, I decided to order 2 dishes of pasta. The first being a cream-based pasta that was actually served with bacon and pecans and of course Parmesan cheese. I also ordered a lasagna which was quite delicious, as well as a dessert that was supposedly a family recipe from the chef Luigi himself. This pastry was made out of chocolate and coffee and quite frankly was one of the best desserts I've had recently. Transitioning back to where I was at Don Pastor, it was now time to leave and start walking around with the umbrella I had just purchased. And despite the rain, before leaving I did want to take one last look at the beautiful cathedral in front of us. Alright guys, had to take a break. It was raining a little bit too much over there, my legs were getting wet, but as you can tell, this is where everybody is. So the city didn't die, just everybody changed location. And of course I got this umbrella like I showed earlier. 100 pesos, let's see if it lasts the whole trip. If it does, great investment. As we walk away from the main plaza, not only do we run into many shops and restaurants, but we also run into Plaza Democracia, in front of which we come across another significant temple, which is Templo Expiatorio del Espíritu Santo. From what I understand, this ornate structure was built over 2 centuries and was supposedly founded by Jesuits, thus why it is also known as Templo de la Compañía. As we continue walking around in the historic downtown, we come across one of the many hotels catering to tourists from around the world, being that Mexico now is one of the most visited countries worldwide. You are also likely to find people selling different types of food on the street, such as esquites, which from what I understand is what people call corn in this part of the country. To be expected, you find streets closed down for vendors to sell a variety of products, adding to the touristic experience. As you walk down these historic streets, I think you will be quite impressed to see how well maintained these structures are, which is why I feel Puebla is one of the most aesthetically pleasing cities in Mexico. And as beautiful as this area is in the daytime, I feel it can be even more captivating at night. Aside from really cute restaurants and shops, you sometimes bump into these very picturesque mini shopping centers nestled in these historic structures. If you get lucky, you might just witness a religious ceremony on the street. When the weather cooperates, you might also run into a talented artist playing a few notes. And of course, on rainy days, there are many coffee shops and restaurants offering delicious drinks and decadent desserts, like this cheesecake topped with a very delicious marmalade that I was told was made in Zacatlan, which is a very stunning magical town that I also did an episode on. Alright guys, the rain continues, but as you can see, this city has a really good spirit. It's continuing just underneath covered areas. You can see the tour buses, which obviously are going to be somewhat empty. You can definitely tell that the people here are used to the constant rain during the monsoon season, and this is why the city was quite alive despite the weather. Luckily, there are many restaurants and bars around the main plaza, like this one where you can take refuge from the rain. This also gives you an opportunity to discover the many beautiful restaurants around the plaza while you get a bite to eat or a drink. I know we're not in Oaxaca, but we're in Puebla, and Puebla's nearby, and whenever I'm in Mexico, especially this far south, I have to have some mezcal. And normally they have it with sal de gusano. This is kind of similar. Looks like tajin and regular salt, but at least they have the typical slices of orange. So let's have a shot of mezcal. A cheers to this very beautiful city. I identified another place that I think we definitely should check out, again, because I'm a big fan of views, and it's right next to the main cathedral, so we're going right there. The second place was more interesting in my opinion, being that it offered a stunning view of the main cathedral, as you're about to see. And the building that this place was in honestly felt like a museum or a work of art, just like other colonial structures in the area. And as soon as I arrived to the top, I continued with some more mezcal while enjoying the beautiful views right outside. Aside from the cathedral, I also had a great view of the main plaza, which was quite empty at this point because of the rain. On the way out, I even passed by another restaurant serving one of Puebla's most famous dishes. To experience more of the nightlife in Puebla, I decided to go to an area right outside of the historic center. This part of the city is along a major street called Benito Juarez, and from my observations seemed to contain many more bars and even clubs that stayed open much later than the more tranquil bars and restaurants in the historic center. Alright guys, what you see right now is that we are actually walking on Benito Juarez. I call this the Juarez Strip. This is one of the first areas outside of the historical center of the city where you find a lot of clubs and bars. It's about maybe 6, 7, 8 blocks, but long blocks. There's a lot of life here, so if you're looking for something just outside of the historical downtown, this may be your spot. And despite the fact that it's been raining, you can see it's actually pretty lively. As you can see, there was a huge variety of bars to choose from. Being how flashy and energetic these clubs were, curiosity got the best of me, and I saw one that piqued my interest, so I decided to go inside. As soon as I got inside, not only was I treated to an amazing light show, but I also saw a very famous local character. And that is Dr. Simi, representing the Similares pharmacy brand. If this type of ambiance is not your thing, there were also more laid-back places nearby. Aside from bars and clubs, there were also popular franchises to be expected, including some very prominent chains, such as what is considered to be one of the highest class steakhouses in the country. Seeing all these food places did start to make me feel hungry after the club, so I started looking for a late night stand, being that I feel that sometimes they have the best food. And lucky for me, I found a really good one next to a 7-Eleven. From what I was told, this style of tacos originated from mixing the concept of the Lebanese shawarma with the Mexican culinary scene. Now granted that this was a taco stand, but I did make a special request for an alambre, and he was nice enough to make one for me, and it looked quite delicious. Keep in mind that tacos and alambres are a very small part of the Mexican culinary scene, but they do tend to really hit the spot. With the tortillas on the side, I was ready to dig in. As I returned to the historic center of the city to get back to my hotel, I took a little bit of time to enjoy the serene, empty streets with the soothing noise of the rain. We fast forward the clock to the next day to get to what we actually came here to see, which is of course the famous cathedral on top of one of the largest pyramids by volume, surrounded by massive volcanoes. For that, we start in Puebla's historical core and head west for about 7 miles. And after passing many blocks of beautiful colonial architecture, we leave this area and enter the first outer rings of the city, where we start to see newer, non-historical developments. The pyramid, by the way, is located in the town of Cholula, which is essentially in the outer parts of the Puebla metropolitan area, and is also known to have some of the highest number of cathedrals out of any city in the country. A few miles after leaving the historic core of Puebla, we get on the main highway that takes us to Cholula by the name of Recta Cholula, or Via Volkswagen. And it is on this highway that on clear days we start to get phenomenal views of the massive active volcano Popocatépetl, which is one of the highest active volcanoes in the world. And it is astounding to see 3 to 4 million people in this metropolitan area living within such close proximity to this giant. After driving on this highway for a few miles, we pass Puebla's main beltway and basically enter the Cholula area. We also pass over a very iconic local bridge and witness our first view of the pyramid. The presence of big corporations can even be felt in this very historic area.
Hey guys, we have arrived here in Cholula, next to Puebla.
Cholula is actually divided into multiple parts, with the more historic San Pedro Cholula being located west of the pyramid, where you typically have the more colonial structures, especially the stunning cathedrals, and the more modern San Andres Cholula east of the pyramid, where you typically find the brunt of the nightlife. These two Cholulas have a lot to offer, and we will explore that in the next episode. But for now, we're going to fast forward straight ahead to the pyramid, and to get to the top, we will take one of the main paths on the San Pedro Cholula side, even though there are other paths. This buried pyramid is so massive that it has practically created its own ecosystem, with many trees growing on top of it. Legend has it that the pyramid was already covered with vegetation when the Spanish arrived, and because of its sheer size, the Spanish assumed that it was just a large hill before building the cathedral. About halfway up, there is an open area where you can take a quick break to catch your breath and enjoy some of the first elevated views of the surroundings. Once you're done resting, the second half of the climb awaits to get to the cathedral with much better views. What you may or may not be able to see in this video is that each of these elongated stairs is actually on an incline instead of being completely flat. This is a big reason why climbing up this particular pyramid can be quite tiring. After about 10 to 15 minutes of climbing, I finally reached the top, and needless to say, you know I was out of breath.
And here we are, guys.
But it was worth it, as we get our first views from the top, looking east and southeast towards the very long developing skyline of Angelopolis, including one of the most unique buildings in the Western Hemisphere, what people call the DNA building. As we look northeastward, we see the smallest out of the 3 volcanoes, and that is La Malinche, which is still very impressive at over 14,000 feet. Turning the corner, we have the opportunity to look northward towards the more industrial parts of the city. And from here, as we turn left looking northwest, we witnessed another very iconic structure of Cholula that we will be visiting in the next episode. It even seems that it wasn't just humans that were impressed with this structure and the views. The most impressive view, in my opinion at least, is looking west, where you are able to view the 2 largest volcanoes in the area. For that, people usually climb these stairs that you see to your right, and if you're lucky to be there on a clear day, one of the first things you will see is the massive dormant volcano of Iztaccíhuatl at around 17,000 feet. This mountain is also known by some as a sleeping woman because of its shape. And to the left, we see the even larger and very active Popocatépetl, which is one of the largest of its type in the world. Now let's talk about the cathedral itself. With construction starting in the 1500s, Santuario de Nuestra Señora de los Remedios suffered heavy damage during an earthquake in the 1800s. And it seems unclear whether the Spanish knew that this was a pyramid when they built the structure, being that the pyramid was supposedly covered by dirt by the time they arrived. One of the things that I really love about these cathedrals is the attention to detail that you find inside. A tradition that I really cherish on my journeys is indulging in local foods like this traditional Mexican chocolate and lychee in a place that offers great views.
Check this out, guys. Lychee, right here on the pyramid. And again, the guy made it look a lot easier, but it's still pretty easy. Just gotta peel the skin outside. You get this perfect filmy little thing. But remember, it has a seed inside, so don't eat the whole thing.
The Mexican-style chocolate does have a more grainy taste, to me at least, and history has it that it did originate from Mexico, more specifically from the ancient Olmec civilization. Join me on the next episode as we make it back down this magnificent structure to continue discovering the area around this pyramid, including very beautiful colonial architecture, as well as delicious food that you can find on the street, and even a very interesting drink that you may not know about. We will also run into places serving food from a variety of cultures, including one of the most unique Italian dishes I have ever had. One of the most intriguing things we will see is a very daring cultural ritual where performers climb a pole without protection and come back down hanging upside down. We will also dive into Puebla's more modern side with its very innovative architecture, which in itself is quite impressive, being that this is a seismic zone, as well as the numerous newer fancy shopping centers, including one that happens to have one of the largest Ferris wheels right in front. We will also discover other notable historic parts of the city, which, believe it or not, includes a location that is the birthplace of the very famous holiday Cinco de Mayo. And as a final bonus, I will reveal the name of a place nearby that is like a little piece of Italy in this land of great contrasts.